Hello and welcome to day 6. We are talking about communication and how to communicate in the healthiest way possible. The first thing I thought about on this was there should be a playbook, something that is given to team members to help them sort of understand when it is appropriate to use which form of communication. I know that it didn't exist, and if it does exist, great. So this is sort of my best practice based on a lot of trial and error in my life. If you're just needing to share a simple message, if you're collaborating on something, email is perfectly fine. It is a great vehicle, professional vehicle for sure, in order to get information instantly without necessarily having to sit on a phone. If you are in a conflict, two people not seeing eye to eye, it could be heated, it doesn't have to be heated. But a conflict should not use email as a vehicle. Email lacks, and we've all heard this, email lacks feeling and tone. So then, similar to the phrase, I'm sorry you took it that way, you are leaving how the message is received completely at the other person's hand in their perspective. Unless that person thinks just like you, your intention behind the email and how they receive it can be markedly different. And then what might have been a 2 on the scale of conflict, and a 1 to 10, and now turns into a 6 or 7. And there's definitely feelings wrapped into what's happening, but it could have been avoided. So if it comes to a conflict, two people not seeing eye to eye, that should be handled via telephone. If they're down the hall office, great, go see them. There's something about face-to-face that really kind of brings the heightened sensitivity down a little. I mean, I think at first it's probably scary, for lack of a better word, and I think that's why people revert to email or to text. I can think of many times, and typically it's been younger generations that for their entire lives have had a smartphone in their house, so the instant ability to send messages has always been a part of their life. But if there's someone in my life that wants to ask me about something, wants to ask me for something, I tend to get it in a text. I don't get a phone call. And I know that it makes it easier maybe on the person sending it, right? Because they're not having to hear my tone when I'm like, you want what? But at the end of the day, it's impersonal. So the art of communicating is, if we're not careful, is going to get lost. I mean, it's evolved. We know it's evolved. I can remember, like I said, I used to get faxes at the end of the day on how business was across the organization. And today it's email, and I get it 4 times a day, and I know how things look. So communications access has certainly also progressed, if you will. But communication, is that a gift, or is that a potential opportunity to grow muscle? And my opinion would be communication is an opportunity to grow muscle if you don't have it naturally, like I didn't. I've been very fortunate to have people really thank me for how I helped them learn how to communicate or how to work through a conflict, that sort of thing. Understand that those teachings came from my own failures. As I told you, I would share failures. It hasn't changed. I will tell you everything I know if it's going to help you. Which, interestingly enough, my favorite F word is actually filter. And if you see my shirt, I wore this, Words Are Currency, because Tammy and Tammy Kling, Tiara Tompkins, they are the CEO and Vice President of On Fire Books. They were the editors on my book, Be You. And when I wrote the book, all the chapters I wrote in different order, but the very first chapter I wrote was a chapter called My Favorite F Word. It was specifically because as easily as we can communicate with people, ultimately, if you can practice a filter just enough to make sure that you kind of spell check or feeling check your message before you deliver it, you can improve your communication. Now, one of the challenges that came up from that, from a reader, was then you're not being authentic. If I'm filtering, I'm not being authentic. I am going to disagree. And since I'm the one on the video, I get to do that here. I disagree because you can filter your message and still be who you are. You can just be an enlightened version without having to be brash or rude or what's the word people like to say? I mean, I'm direct. I'm incredibly direct. But I can convey a message without it having to be hurtful, meaning that the intention behind sharing that message is received. So if you don't have communication muscle, work on that. It's important. It will serve you in every form of your life. And let other people's failures be your successes. I got that phrase from a colleague named John a long time ago. I love it, and it's so true. But don't be afraid to communicate. Just remember, the more sensitive the communication that's happening, the more important that it happens in person or at least verbally from one person to the other. Again, if it's just work stuff, it's simple, it's passing information, passing a knowledge, that sort of thing, no conflict. Email is fantastic, text is fantastic. But the more sensitive that communication could potentially be, you need to escalate up the level of personal touch you're adding to it. So I hope that kind of answered the email question. Oh, I forgot about the emojis. So with emojis, I think that, I use them a lot. If you get email from me ever, I love emojis. I think they're called GIFs. It might be GIFs. Go ahead, roast me over that. As I said, email didn't exist when I started in the workplace. But they can kind of convey to the reader a little of what your intention really is behind the message. Now, if it's a professional email to a source and it needs to be professional, of course you're going to leave emojis out of it. You're certainly not going to put a meme, that sort of thing. Other than that, though, if you are being authentic and you're somebody who likes to be expressive and emojis are your thing, emoji away. If you like GIFs, GIF away. It's rare I've seen somebody be offended or insulted because somebody was trying to extend some sort of emotion in that communication. So that would be my 2 cents, if you will, on that message. If you are in the market, I'm going to go ahead and plug them since I'm wearing their shirt because Tammy and TR gave me this shirt. If you're in the market to write a book, if you have been writing a book and don't have an editor or a creative content team, go to On Fire Books. Look them up. They are amazing and just authentic. They are authentic too. So thank you all for being here. This became a little longer than I expected. Hope I didn't ramble too much. And if it brought something up you want to have some conversation around, just leave a comment. Shoot me a message. Some people don't like to comment publicly. That is totally okay. And then ultimately, I will see you all tomorrow. I sure hope you have an incredible day. And remember, communication, the more sensitive or heightened that communication is going to be, the more personal touch it needs to have. Have a great day, guys. I'll see you tomorrow.